Hey, good morning, all. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Tuesday to you. Happy last day of meteorological winter as meteorological spring begins tomorrow on March 1st. And boy, is it going to be an active one here over the next several days. We have another major storm settled into parts of the western United States here today into tomorrow, and that is going to move into the plains as we head into Thursday and then into the eastern U.S. on Friday. A lot of weather expected with it. And the wintry part of this storm has been the part that's been the most challenging for us to try to pin down as models continue to struggle between the warmth in the southeast and the colder air that's lurking to the north. But the general trends in the last couple of models have started to settle in on this becoming a Great Lakes to interior northeast snowstorm. And of course, a major severe weather outbreak, especially across the south central United States, but also potentially in the southeast and the Carolinas towards the end of the week. And in between the two, we're going to have a lot of rain and a lot of wind to talk about as well. So let's take a look at watches and warnings. Currently, we do have a storm leaving the northeast slowly this morning. Some winter storm warnings in effect across central and southern parts of New York State, away from the city and the interior of New England, and advisories surrounding that, including all of Long Island and northeast PA and central New York. We do have some wind advisories over the Appalachians. We have another winter storm moving across the north central parts of the country, with the Dakotas under a a winter storm warning and advisories around that. We have red flag warnings with high winds and low humidity expected to produce fire conditions over the south central parts of the U.S., mainly on the high plains. And out west, another winter storm with winter storm warnings over western Oregon and California, and blizzard warnings across the entire Sierra Nevada, where snow totals have gone over 600 inches across places like Mammoth, California. In New York City, we're talking 4 or 5 inches of snow the entire winter. That's about the rates we're seeing per hour at these higher elevations in California. Just amazing. And a very big storm moving into the west. Let's look at the radar from perryweather.com, and I'm going to make that large for you all to see. And you can see our circulation here over eastern Ontario and a secondary low forming just south of Long Island. And that did produce some thunder snow last night in New York City, but most of that snow is now winding down in time for the morning rush. Still snowy, though, on Long Island and across much of southern New England, and the heaviest snow rates are across Rhode Island and southeastern Mass, mainly south of Boston. We also have some pretty heavy snow falling north of Syracuse on the Ontario snowbelt here. But notice to the west, we have some milder air beginning to work up from the Great Lakes, changing that snow over to a wintry mix between Syracuse and Rochester, and even some rain around Buffalo and Niagara Falls heading eastward. So the majority of the winter storm is over for Pennsylvania and western New York, but still well in progress here across central and eastern New York State and into central and southern New England, and some heavy snow as well falling in places like Ottawa, the capital district here of Ontario, and spreading east into Montreal. But it's going to hit a wall, and Quebec City on into northern Maine should avoid the majority of this snow. Across the rest of the country, things are pretty quiet this morning. We do see our next storm beginning to produce some pretty heavy snow amounts over the mountains of central and southern Utah. We had snow squall warnings this morning in southern Utah, and that is going to expand here into the Dakotas today and expand northeastward towards Bismarck and Fargo later today. And out west, we do have a potent storm moving onshore, and that is the one we're going to be watching Thursday and Friday over the central and eastern states, with snow falling around Seattle and just to the east of Portland, and even some lightning strikes with rain on the southwest coast of Oregon. And we may have a few lightning strikes in northern Cal with snow at low elevations inland across the coastal range. So a big storm to talk about for certain. And the reason why, we've got just a continued onslaught of very fast winds aloft, a very active jet stream here across the country, and very fast winds coming down the California coast later on tomorrow, with our storm carving out parts of the southwest U.S. And you can see a cutoff low here, or cutoff, I don't know, strong upper low over the southwest, digging all the way into New Mexico. That's going to pick up energy in the 500 millibar region, and a jet streak here of about 130 to 135 miles per hour is going to transport in that fast wind aloft and pull moisture out of the Gulf by the time it moves into East Texas here late Thursday into Thursday evening. And you'll see that spreads north and eastward. This is a classic setup for tornadoes over East Texas and into the Ark-la-tex, northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas, possibly sneaking into Mississippi later Thursday night, and that'll be overnight when things can be dangerous under the cover of the darkness. And that cutoff low is going to move northeastward, and models continue to yank it farther west with each run, especially the NAM model has that upper low going over central Missouri and just west of Chicago. The GFS here shows it going up over Indianapolis. In between the two is probably the most likely location at this point. But you can see there's a ton of wind here and a lot of instability over the southeast on Friday afternoon. So there could be another severe weather outbreak in the Carolinas and Georgia here Friday afternoon, maybe even getting into southern Virginia. But by the time it's moving northeastward, it's pulling that milder air up into the mid-Atlantic region, and we're just talking about rain, and any wintry weather is going to switch over to rain across the northeast based on this storm track. We would want to see this upper low not tracking over Lake Erie. If we wanted heavy snow across the mid-Atlantic, we would want that tracking through Maryland. So a 400-mile shift northwest in a few days is, of course, spelling doom here for those who want to see snow in the mid-Atlantic region. And as we get to next week, things do settle down a little bit, but we'll continue to have a progressive storm track over the central parts of the country. But you'll notice across central Canada, we do have more of a push of colder air coming down here by way of the northwest as we get to the 8th. And that is a shift in the MJO, which is going to lead to a colder overall look across the country here by around the 10th into the 15th of March as we deal with a late burst of some winter. So I'm going to show you the threat for severe weather is low for today. Tomorrow, though, we may see some severe weather beginning later in the evening as our warm front lifts north. Our upper low is still back here, but there could be the threat for some localized tornadoes and strong winds overnight Wednesday night after dark, after it gets dark out, so mainly late at night. And that includes Memphis, by the way, Little Rock, and to the Delta region of Mississippi and back to the Ark-la-tex. However, I believe day 3 is going to be a much more active day. We have an enhanced risk right now showing up from the Dallas Metroplex over to northern and central Louisiana into west central Mississippi and Arkansas. Now, on my graphic, I actually have a red area of moderate, and I think that's the direction we're going to have to go here, but the Storm Prediction Center hasn't pulled the trigger on that just yet. And I would be concerned about stronger tornadoes somewhere in the middle of this region. You can see they've got an area hatched for widespread, significant severe weather. It doesn't quite line up with the enhanced risk, but it is around that area. But I would say primarily northeast and east Texas, northern and central parts of Louisiana and southern Arkansas, as well as southeast Oklahoma, have the best chance at seeing that enhanced risk. You can see I've got it kind of outlined here. I think it'll go to a moderate risk. I don't know necessarily about high risk, but definitely moderate. And so we'll have to see if the Storm Prediction Center goes in that direction. And oh, by the way, and I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I need to reload it, but okay, they haven't updated it. Great. All right, Storm Prediction Center, save me from Pivotal. Jeez. The convective outlook for day 4, that is Friday. Good grief, I'm having a day here already. Shows a good chunk of the southeast under a 15% risk. I think this is going to be more widespread wind damage than tornadoes, but I think there will be an enhanced tornado risk somewhere in here, stretching from eastern Georgia up through the Midlands of South Carolina, maybe even to I-85, and then sneaking up to about Charlotte and potentially just south of the Triad. But the models do not have a strong agreement in them yet, so that could still change. I want to show you the NAM model now, and you can see how things evolve here in the south central United States. As we head on into Wednesday night and Thursday morning, you can see a few stronger cells get going here in Arkansas and western Tennessee, maybe northern Mississippi. Some of these could be intense, and we'll also have some heavy rainfall. But as we get into Thursday, things evolve a lot faster with our surface low moving through southern Oklahoma here Thursday afternoon. This is around dinner time, and then very quickly things are blowing up in the evening and moving eastward. You can see this is another intense line of storms with embedded supercells. I think there will likely be some tornadoes somewhere in this region. If we go and look and pull up a sounding here from, say, East Texas, from the NAM, you can see possibly there is the setup for a stronger tornado. You can see there's definitely some wind shear with a southerly wind at the surface, faster winds out of the southwest as we get to about 3 to 5,000 feet up, and a very moist profile here with just really not even a cap. So the cap is broken, and we have definitely a line of strong storms moving through. The question mark is, will there be a few supercells ahead of it, or are we just dealing with embedded supercells in that line of storms, like we saw in Oklahoma, by the way, early Monday morning and late Sunday night? There could still be a stronger tornado. This says potentially there's enough significant tornado parameter with convective inhibition for a higher end tornado. But again, this is just one model run, and it likely could change. Now, as we look at the storm track here on the GFS, you can see it is taking the low over St. Louis, but wrapping colder air behind it, meaning northern and central parts of the Ozarks up through northeast Missouri and into northern Illinois and Michigan see potentially some heavy snow out of this, most of that coming on Friday. And then we'll see a wintry mix of heavy snow and ice in Pennsylvania and North Jersey early in the day Friday, expanding northeastward into New England, and already a shift over to rain in New York, the city that is, by the end of the day on Friday, and heavy rain Friday night, but potentially a significant amount of sleet and freezing rain from Napa on over into central parts of New England, and heavy snow across northern New England, except the northern part of Maine where we've got dry air in place. This is from the GFS. The NAM model shows that track farther north and west, and I think it could be onto something. You can see it deepens our low pressure system faster and brings a thumping of some snow from Oklahoma City and Tulsa on up through eastern Kansas into central and eastern Iowa, and sneaking just north and west of Chicago. There could be backside snow on Friday afternoon and evening in Chicago, but it looks like the heavier amounts are probably northwest Illinois and southern Wisconsin. You can see on the GFS, this is our storm today, 3 to 6 inches, maybe higher amounts in parts of Maine. And then another storm as we head to tomorrow night into Thursday over Quebec and the St. Lawrence Valley. But here you can see our storm Friday, and it's got significant amounts over the interior of the Northeast, but also a pretty big band here west of St. Louis from the Ozarks region up to around Chicago and just to the north and west of Detroit, maybe even 10 inches in the thumb. So this model has continued to shift around some, but you can see it is a significant snow, and a lot of it falls pretty heavily in just a few hours in this region, and then a more widespread snow here Friday into Friday night across the interior of the Northeast. However, New York City is kind of on the very edge, and I don't think Philly is going to see much of any snow out of this. So things have shifted. A few days ago, you remember the models had things in this region. They have shifted north, which is unfortunate if you want a lot of snow, but that is just how the winter has gone. And that's how it looks like the storm is going to play out once again. If you take a look at the NAM model here, actually, we'll come back to the NAM, but if you look at the European, you can see here's our first snow, and then the next one's got a huge amount of snow falling northwest of St. Louis, but over northeastern Missouri and even the Ozarks here, right on up to the northern suburbs of Chicago, where we're looking at potentially over a foot of snow. And then a huge snow over central lower Michigan, central and even northern lower Michigan, right around the Saginaw Bay, and then spreading into this portion of southeast Canada, and northern and central New England and New York State could see up to a foot of snow out of this, maybe even a little bit more. The Canadian model shows a kind of a similar setup, but less amounts of snow, and in fact pretty much misses Chicago to the southeast. Starts to pick up that snow around Cleveland and Toledo, but has much bigger amounts here over the interior of the Northeast, maybe potentially 20 inches. So a big difference between the GFS and the Canadian. The GFS thumps this area, the Canadian thumps this area. The Icon and the NAM models are definitely not looking anything like these global models. In fact, the Icon keeps it northwest of Chicago and drills eastern and southern Wisconsin and northern lower Michigan, and then pretty much avoids Buffalo and all of Ohio. So it is way far north, while the NAM model is kind of trending in that direction as well. I don't know if this is going to happen, 35 inches in Iowa, but maybe a foot. This is drilling Kansas City, eastern Kansas, even northeast Oklahoma. And you can see this is not spelling a lot of snow for St. Louis or Chicago. It keeps everything well north and west. And my imagination would make me think that this snow would continue to move on up into northern lower Michigan and northeast Wisconsin. The NAM only goes out 84 hours. That is about 96 hours out. So very intense storm, but still there's a lot of uncertainty as the convection allowing models continue to wrap things up farther northwest than the global models. And the Canadian is still farther south and east than the European and especially the GFS. We've got a lot of wind we have to be concerned with here Thursday night across the deep south, and especially Friday over the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. Wind gusts over 60 miles per hour possible, and then into the Carolinas, West Virginia, and Western PA, gusts over 50 possible. So we could have power outages regardless of whether or not we have severe weather due to the fact that there'll be strong winds. And a lot of that's going to be Friday morning in the Tennessee and Ohio Valley, and then Friday afternoon and into the evening across the Mid-Atlantic region, and then into southern New England Friday night. So that's from the GFS. Rainfall is going to be a big deal here as well. We see a huge amount of rain over the Tennessee Valley, 2 to 3 inches possible. And then the next push over Arkansas into the lower Ohio Valley brings 4 to 5 inches through southeastern Missouri, western Kentucky, and southern Indiana. So there will be flash flooding possible across this region here. Tough to say who gets the worst of it. But definitely something I'm concerned with, as this is a potent storm. And if the NAM is right, actually, we're looking at even higher amounts, which may circulate up into this part of the area. So we do see quite a bit of rain on the NAM, but it's more concentrated over the Tennessee-Kentucky border and northern parts of Arkansas. But the NAM really just drills this moisture right on up through western parts of Missouri and south central Iowa. And we'll have to see if that's right or not. Just a big difference between those models. So I will pin more of this down for you guys here as we get into Thursday. I think we'll have a much better feel for what's going to happen with our storm track, maybe even Wednesday evening, but I'll have community updates between now and tomorrow morning's video. So thank you so much for your time today. Please, if you could subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss the latest content. I'm going to do my best to keep it pretty fresh and update you guys based on what I think is going to impact you all the most. I thank you so much for your time, and I want to thank God for giving me the opportunity to do this once again. And I want to thank him for bringing his son, Jesus Christ, to save me and millions of other Christians. And I just want to read this quick passage, Romans 16:20, and the God of peace will quickly crush Satan under your feet. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you. The God of peace. I've seen a lot of people commenting that God is angry and that God is causing all this weather. But really, the promises from the Holy Word, from the Bible, state that God is a God of peace, not a God of jealous rage. And that Satan is where the jealous rage comes from. And that enemy is there, but God is here to crush him and extend his grace through Jesus Christ. And that grace is eternal life. No matter what storms we deal with here in life, we have the promise of the gift of eternal life through Jesus Christ. That doesn't mean anything we take lightly. That just means we've been given a gift that we could either kick under the car or we can accept. And I pray that you have accepted Jesus Christ, and I'm happy to pray for you if you are struggling in your faith or if you choose to not believe that direction. And I'm not going to judge you on that. That is not up to me. But I thank you for just joining me, and I really do want to encourage you and pray for you and anything you may be going through, or any of your friends or family members may be going through. And if you could pray for me as well, to continue to do what the Lord has called me to do, and that's this YouTube channel. It's not all about me anymore. It's about Jesus Christ and God. So I don't care how many followers I have. I'm not here to spell doom and gloom. I'm here to save lives and save souls by sharing my testimony and sharing the gift that God has given me through weather. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you all are safe and have a wonderful Tuesday. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. God bless you.